Hello everyone and welcome to another Song of Veridia devlog. The Song of Veridia is a fantasy RPG that I'm making, which combines the elements of Skyrim and Terraria. My name is Jordan and I'm an indie game dev. These past 2 months have been incredibly productive and I have a lot of exciting things that I want to show you. As you may have noticed in this video, the format is a little bit different. I did decide to change it up a bit because previously I obviously had scripted videos and they were edited a lot more, and I did decide to change it up because for the most part the editing has taken a lot of time, and don't get me wrong, I really love making these videos and I really enjoy editing and content creation. However, the editing has taken a lot of valuable time that I could spend working on the game, and so I did decide to shorten the amount of time that I dedicate to making these videos. I do still want to show off the progress, and I love making these videos and talking to you and getting all the amazing feedback. Other than that, I also decided to stop writing scripts for my videos because for me personally, this just feels a lot more natural and genuine. You know, reading all the scripts has felt very just robotic and inauthentic. I just didn't personally like it, so I did decide to have this format instead because I just think it's gonna come off a lot better and heartfelt, and I can also talk more about specific things instead of, you know, writing a script for like briefly explaining something. But anyway, before I get into what I've been working on, I did want to talk a bit more about what this game is actually about, because I realize I've made 2 devlogs without really mentioning that like at all. I've always just said like a very brief explanation. So yeah, let's get to it. So basically, the game is about you waking up on a mysterious island with no idea how you got there. Eventually, you learn that you've been pulled into a different dimension by an evil witch who has done this to many other people, and your goal is to stop her. At its core, the gameplay itself is a combination of Terraria's exploration and progression and Skyrim's quests and NPC interactions, and I want to put a far heavier emphasis on the exploration because I want people to feel the desire to keep exploring, and I also want to put a heavy emphasis on the NPC interactions. I want to have a cast of interesting characters who all have unique and interesting stories to tell. I want to explore some topics that I think would be cool to see explored in these characters, and yeah, they're gonna lead you all the way to the end of the game. So yeah, with that out of the way, I can finally talk about what I actually got done in these past 2 months. The first thing I made was a character creator, which it might seem that it is a bit too early to have something like that in the game. It's certainly not necessary in terms of, you know, the main gameplay mechanics. However, it's not a thing right now, but I am going to add armors later into the game, and with armors we will have different outfits that the player can wear, and obviously every single piece of armor and clothing that you will wear is going to require to have its own drawn animations. And so while it's not really necessary to like have the character creator right now, I thought it would be better to do this sooner rather than later. And so there's that. But yeah, obviously with a character creator, we didn't only get new options for our existing character, but I also added gender options. So now we have a female character who I designed a special outfit for. Now, I will say, going forward, I don't really want to make like unique outfits based on the gender of your character, just because every time that's in a game, I'm really like, it frustrates me because like I always see like a really cool outfit for my character and then, you know, I put it on and it looks completely different. And that's something that I don't personally like in video games, but I just thought that I would make an exception in this regard, just because I wanted to kind of have something unique going on for the starter outfit. And so what I ended up doing for the female character's outfit was I did take a bunch of inspiration from Pinterest and I threw it onto a mood board in Milanote. I tried to still keep it very much like functionality-wise the same as the male outfit, but I really like these like medieval corset outfits, so I tried to kind of replicate that. Something that was really hard was obviously we have a very small pixel art character, so it's really hard to translate all of these details into just a couple of pixels, but generally I am really proud of how this outfit turned out. You can actually see it best with short hair for the female character. But yeah, I went for this kind of like corset outfit with a shoulderless blouse, and then I did like higher boots. And yeah, that's about it for the female outfit. I think it turned out really cool. Definitely let me know what you think of it, but yeah, I really like it. The next thing I worked on was a side world building project, which ended up developing into something way bigger than I originally anticipated. And yeah, what I ended up making was a world map of the kingdom of Veridia. And this all started when I randomly thought of a TikTok I saw a long time ago, maybe in like 2021, of someone drawing a fantasy map by throwing rice on a sheet of paper and outlining it and using that as a shape for the landscape. And with that, I've decided to go on a 3-week journey of drawing the map. Now, I did actually work on this in my spare time rather than the time I dedicate to actually working on the game, because, you know, I didn't want this map to like take away from my actual time that I work on the game. And yeah, let me walk you through the process. So at first, all I did was I grabbed a sheet of paper and I grabbed a rice bag from the kitchen and I started pouring it on there. Now, in the video that I've recorded, I actually throw the rice onto the paper instead of pouring it. Don't actually do that because it makes a mess and you don't really get like a good shape that you can outline. So I did, you know, later look up a tutorial on TikTok on how you properly do this. And yeah, it's way better to actually pour the rice out of the bag. And that's how you get like a good shape going. And the reason I actually really like this instead of just drawing the map myself is because the rice does give it like an element of naturality, and it's not something that is made by someone. The same way how our planet wasn't made by us, we just found ourselves on it. And that's what I love about it, because yes, I know it's fantasy, but I feel like having a realistic element like this does like pull it all together, and ultimately it makes the process a lot more fun and unique, because there is a kind of layer of mystery to it, and I think that's what makes it a lot more fun. But anyway, after I poured the rice onto the paper, I took an ink pen and I drew an outline of the mainland, the islands around it, and the bodies of water in these places. And after that, I scanned what I drew and I imported it into Krita. And in my free time, I just, you know, woke up early in the morning. I sat down, put on some music, and I just started drawing and drawing. And obviously, the biggest inspiration for this was the map of Middle-earth, and yeah, the whole process was very fun and super enjoyable. And if any of you are thinking of drawing a fantasy map like this, whether it's for your own game or for even a book you're making or for a D&D campaign, I strongly recommend it because it's a lot of fun, and especially if you do a lot of research into how locations get founded and how economies and societies build up. It's really cool to make a world out of that. And yeah, I guess without further ado, let's take a look at the final result. Alright guys, so the print has finally arrived. I am extremely excited to show this off to you. I am extremely proud of how this turned out. I am smiling from ear to ear. It did take me like 2 weeks to draw all this, including, you know, the paper texture that I did in Photoshop. And then it was like, I was waiting for like 2 or 3 weeks for the actual print to arrive. But it's finally here, and I am really excited to show it off. As a preamble, I will say this map is the lore accurate map. It is the canon map of the game. But since I am just one person, obviously I can't guarantee that every location you see on here is going to be a part of the game. Because, you know, scope creep is a real threat. I can't fit all of this into the game, but it is the canon map, so everything you're seeing here is an actual part of the world, and it is what Veridia is made out of. So, you know, if you don't see some of these locations in the game, you know, feel free to, I don't know, write fan fiction or something using these locations. I'm always really excited to see stuff like that. I think that's really cool. But yeah, let's, you know, get to the actual map itself. So the actual design itself is heavily inspired by the map of Middle-earth from Lord of the Rings. But yeah, so obviously starting at the bottom here, we have the banner with the name of the Kingdom of Veridia, illustrated by me. I did these little stars and whatever these like squiggly lines are to border the edges of the map, because I thought it was a nice little detail. Then of course in the right corner here we have the compass, and you know, you may notice that these aren't, you know, north, south, east and west directions, and that is because, you know, this is a different world where that isn't how they made the compasses. I will get more into what these symbols mean on I will be doing a series of posts on my Blue Sky where I will be talking a lot about the lore behind the map, the world building, and also just the general process of making it. So if you're interested in seeing that, make sure to follow me on there and, you know, stay tuned. So the map itself is split into 4 biomes. So obviously starting off here we have the forest, which is, you know, the area you're currently seeing in the game. So here is a town called River Grove, And you can see this whole area is like deeply forested. And then we have Dranglade Field over here, which is inspired a lot by Whiterun and the field around that area, as well as Hyrule Field from Ocarina of Time, I think. Then up here we have Golden Sands, which is a desert area. And so you can see the dunes over here, and then at the edges here, the mountains turn into Talrock Canyon, and you can kind of see the transition over here from Talrock Pass back into the big mountains, and that also transitions into the third biome, which is the Dark Forest. And this is going to be a deep, very like whimsical and magical forest with, you know, huge trees and big mushrooms and different magical creatures like fairies. Then over here we have Veridia's Landing, which is where the actual castle was built, where the queen reigned. And then on the left here we have a small area called the Dark Bog, which is, you know, a very like deep and evil swamp area. And then up here we have the Silver Peak Mountains, which is going to be very high and snowy mountain area. And here, of course, is Veridia's Throat, which is the tallest mountain in Veridia. And something that I try to do a lot here with this map is trying to show off these different biomes with different looking parts of the map. So obviously, you know, here in the forest you have these like triangular shaped trees, and then in the mountains you have these hand-drawn pine trees everywhere. And then of course the Dark Forest, because it is much larger and light barely comes through these trees at all, I have these like thick blobs that are, you know, just a dense forest going all the way across this side of the map. You can kind of see it behind the mountain range on the coast here as well. Here you can kind of see the details in the canyon and then the mountains. Actually, these look kind of bad. Hold on, let me show you. There we go, these are better. So yeah, this is what the mountains look like. This is a cliff, and it is these cliffs over here are called Twin Stone Cliffs because, you know, here's one stone and here's the other. It's really dumb, but you know, it's like the thing you learn about location names is that they're not particularly like intricate in their naming. They're always really like named extremely literally, so there's that. I think that's about it for the map. Finally, the last part of the game that I worked on was revamping the combat, because personally, to me, the old combat felt very slow and bland and, you know, very like uninspired. And so I did end up changing it, and I wanted some system that was very like action-packed, but also something that I haven't really seen done before. And so I decided to add Souls-like combat into the game, because it's something that I've personally never seen done in a 2D game before. Now, with that said, it's not even close to being done yet. But I did manage to get at least a basic functionality for it done. And so currently what I've implemented is locking onto enemies. And obviously when this happens, it's not just that your camera follows the enemy, but I also need the player to keep facing the enemy the whole time he's locked onto them. And so what I actually had to do was change up the movement code a little bit, or well, expand upon it so that the player behaves differently when locked on. And this actually gave me a bit of trouble because here's a little secret about me that is very unfortunate. In my almost 4 years of game dev, I haven't really touched vector math all that much, and neither have I touched physics calculations, which, you know, is not the best thing to ignore, but, you know, I've reached a point where, like, I can't just rely on the internet with helping me, because these are, like, such specific use cases where I'm on my own, and so what I had to do for the first time is learn vector math, which is a thing I never understood even in school. And so I spent just hours studying how you find an angle out of 2 points. And a huge shout out to Mario's math tutoring, because that video single-handedly is responsible for the enemy lock-on working. So huge thanks to this guy. He is awesome. But yeah, I did eventually actually learn vector math, and I was able to get it done. But it does go to show that, you know, don't ignore things, like learn stuff for your own sake. And yeah, I'm gonna work some more on this. Next devlog, the Souls-like combat should be finished, hopefully. And yeah, that is about it in terms of what I've actually got done. However, I actually have one more very important segment before I end the video. And so this next section of the video is something that I've decided to implement into all of my videos from now on, and it is a section where I talk about my struggles and things that are giving me trouble, and, you know, things that I'm worried about, because I want to be completely transparent with you guys. And, you know, the internet is just full of showing just perfection, and people never show the things that aren't going well. So I want to be a bit more real and show off my struggles when I can. And something that has been giving me a lot of trouble pretty much since the first day that I showed my game to someone is that it's just very, very similar to Stardew Valley at the moment. And in some parts, the game does seem like it is straight up just copying Stardew Valley, which I'm saying, like, right away, that is not the case. It has always been just like a very unfortunate coincidence. But I will say there are times where it's like completely my fault for that happening, because, for example, the attack animations are almost 1-to-1 the same as the attack animations in Stardew Valley. And it's not that I was copying them off, but I was using Stardew's animations as a reference. And, you know, when you use pixel art for reference, things can very quickly turn into a copy, because, you know, there you can count the pixels. You can literally just see exactly where they are placed and how they all interact with each other. And that is why those animations look almost the exact same as they do in Stardew. But generally, I do feel that a lot of this feedback is coming mainly from the visuals of the game. And currently, of course, because the game doesn't have much going for it in the gameplay department, I think that people do notice the visuals a lot more, because there isn't much to the actual gameplay yet. And visually, it just is quite similar to Stardew, and it's like the art style is something that I'm not really willing to sacrifice, because, you know, it's just like I am too deep in development to, like, you know, commit my time to carefully changing the art style. And so what I am just trying my absolute best to do right now is making sure that I do everything in my power to differentiate this game from Stardew, because pretty much everyone has been saying that the game seems very similar to it, and you know, it's not what I want to come across as. And it's also just like this game isn't even really like supposed to be close to Stardew in any way. I mean, you know, you do have deep NPC interactions that is planned, but that's about it. And you know, Stardew is such a unique game, and I don't want to give people the wrong impression, and so like I feel like these things like the Souls-like combat do definitely give the game like more character, and so I am just going to be trying to add more parts to the game that make it more itself. I have actually recently changed the font to be a bit more medieval and less cartoony, and I feel like that has helped a lot. And I feel like as time progresses, hopefully this problem will fade away. But yeah, I've been struggling with that a lot, and I haven't quite been able to find like a good solution for it yet. But you know, I wanted to just address this and show that, you know, things aren't, I do have my struggles and not everything is going perfectly how I want it to. But yeah, I did just want to like put out there that I am aware of this issue and I am working on fixing it. But yeah, that is about everything in terms of the actual issues I've been having. And yeah, I guess with that out of the way, I'd like to thank you so much for watching this video until the end. If you enjoyed watching, remember to tap on all the buttons below, and I'll see you next time.